Kai Thornton stared at the devastation through the visor of his helmet, his breath fogging the reinforced glass. The surface of Epsilon 9 was a wasteland of ash and jagged rock, the atmosphere tinted a sickly orange from atmospheric degradation. What had once been the flourishing homeworld of the Astari was now a graveyard. The Union's official report had been clinical, species deemed non-viable. Evacuation resources reassigned. Commander wants everyone back on the Artemis in 30, called Specialist Rivera over the comm link. Says there's nothing left to salvage. Kai nodded but didn't respond. This was their fourth dead world in as many months, planets ravaged by the stellar anomaly that had swept through this sector. The mission was supposed to be humanitarian, but it had quickly become an exercise in documentation rather than rescue. He adjusted his scanner, sweeping it across the ruins of what appeared to be a temple complex. The readings remained flat, no life signs. Then, a flicker. So faint he almost missed it. "I'm picking up something," he said, recalibrating his equipment. 2 clicks north. "Probably just residual energy from the temple core," Rivera replied. "We've seen it before." "False positives." "I'm checking it out." "Thornton, we have orders." Kai switched off his comm. The Union would forgive a little insubordination if he found survivors. They had to. The trek across the fractured landscape was treacherous. Twice he nearly fell into fissures that split the ground like hungry mouths. The signal grew stronger as he approached a half-collapsed dome structure, its once gleaming surface now dulled by ash. Inside, the air was thick with dust. His headlamp cut through the darkness, revealing fallen columns and shattered technology. The signal led him deeper, to a sealed chamber that had somehow withstood the destruction outside. When the door slid open with a reluctant hiss, Kai wasn't prepared for what waited within. A slender figure lay curled on a bed of luminescent moss, her iridescent skin pulsing weakly with internal light, a hallmark of Astari physiology. Her delicate, almost translucent features were contorted in pain, blue-tinged blood seeping from a wound in her side. She was alive. "This is Thornton," he said, reopening his comm channel. "I've found a survivor. Female Astari, injured but alive. Requesting immediate medical evacuation." The static-filled pause lasted too long. "Command says to return to ship," Rivera finally responded. "The Astari were classified terminal 3 weeks ago. No resources allocated for individual rescues." Kai stared at the wounded alien. Her eyes fluttered open, large, almond-shaped, with irises that shifted color like captured nebulae. She reached toward him, a trembling hand with too many joints. "She's conscious," Kai argued. "Responsive. We can't just." "Orders are orders, Thornton. The commander says the species can't be saved. One survivor doesn't change the math." The Astari woman's gaze locked with his, and something passed between them, a silent plea that transcended language. "Get back here in 15 or you're getting left behind," Rivera warned. "Commander's words, not mine." Kai knelt beside the Astari, setting down his emergency kit. "I hear you," he said into the comm, even as he began unpacking medical supplies. "Tell Commander Voss something for me." "What's that?" "He can court-martial me when I get back." He silenced the comm again, this time permanently, and turned his attention to the wounded Astari. Her eyes never left his face as he prepared a universal healing compound, a gel developed for cross-species medical emergencies. "I'm Kai," he said, gesturing to himself. "I'm going to help you." She didn't respond verbally, but her hand closed around his wrist with surprising strength. The colors in her eyes swirled into a deep violet, gratitude, perhaps, or simply recognition that she wasn't alone anymore. Outside, he heard the distant rumble of the Artemis preparing for departure. His crew was leaving. The Union was abandoning this world and its last daughter to their fate. But Kai Thornton was staying. 37 days. That's how long Kai had been stranded on Epsilon 9 with the last known Astari in existence. He marked each rotation on the wall of the temple chamber they had converted into a livable shelter, using supplies from his emergency pack and salvaged technology from the ruins. The Astari woman, who had eventually communicated her name as Mira through a series of gestures and drawings, was gaining strength daily. The wound in her side had mostly healed, leaving a crescent-shaped scar that shimmered faintly when she moved. Her physical resilience was remarkable, but the emotional trauma of being the sole survivor of her species manifested in nightmares that left her trembling and illuminating the darkness with pulses of distressed light from her skin. "It's all right," Kai murmured during one such episode, sitting beside her pallet but careful not to touch her without permission. He had learned that the Astari were deeply empathic beings, and physical contact carried significant weight in their culture. "You're safe, Mira." Her eyes, shifting between stormy gray and electric blue, focused on him. "Safe," she repeated, one of the handful of human words she had mastered. Her voice was melodic, with resonant undertones that seemed to vibrate in the air. Kai smiled encouragingly. "Yes, safe. We both are." In truth, their situation was precarious. The atmospheric degradation was worsening, and his recycled oxygen wouldn't last forever. The emergency beacon he'd activated after the Artemis departed had yielded no response. The Union, it seemed, had written off not only the Astari but also the disobedient human who had chosen to stay behind. Yet in this isolation, something unexpected had flourished. Each day brought new progress in their ability to communicate. Mira was a quick study, absorbing the English language with remarkable speed. Kai, in turn, had begun to understand the complex color language of the Astari, where emotions and basic concepts were expressed through the shifting hues of their skin and eyes. "Why stay?" Mira asked one evening as they shared a meal of synthesized protein and native flora that she had deemed safe for human consumption. Her grammar was still developing, but her intent was clear. Kai paused, considering his answer carefully. "Because it was right," he said finally. "Because your life has value." Myra's skin rippled with a soft golden glow, a color he had come to associate with deep contemplation. "Others, my people, all gone?" The question pierced Kai's heart. He had been dreading this moment, though he knew it was inevitable. "I believe so," he admitted gently. "The Union searched many planets where your people had settled. You are the only survivor we found." Her eyes darkened to a deep indigo, and her shoulders slumped. Kai resisted the urge to comfort her physically, respecting the boundaries they had established. But to his surprise, Mira reached across the space between them and placed her six-fingered hand atop his. A jolt of something, not quite electricity, but similar, passed between them. Her touch was cool and feather-light, yet it sent warmth spiraling through his chest. "Then I am grateful," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "That it was you who found me." The days that followed brought a shift in their dynamic. Mira began teaching Kai about her people, their history, philosophy, and traditions, using elaborate gestures and drawings when words failed. She explained how the Astari had once been caretakers of multiple worlds, cultivating life in even the most inhospitable environments. "We were healers," she explained, demonstrating with a small, withered plant that suddenly flourished under her touch, its leaves unfurling as if reaching for sunlight. "Connected to all living things." Kai watched in amazement. "That's beautiful, Mira." She smiled, an expression she had adopted from him. "Your turn," she prompted. "Tell of Earth." Their evenings became filled with stories, Kai describing the oceans and forests of his home world, Mira sharing legends of Astari ancestors who had seeded the stars with life. As her language skills improved, so did the depth of their conversations, ranging from philosophical debates to playful exchanges that often left them both laughing. It was during one such evening, as Mira attempted to teach him an Astari meditation technique, that Kai realized how much he had come to care for her. They sat facing each other, knees almost touching, eyes closed as they focused on synchronized breathing. "Feel the connection," Mira instructed, her voice hypnotic. "Between your energy and mine." Kai tried to concentrate, but was distracted by his awareness of her presence, the subtle fragrance that reminded him of starflowers, the gentle sound of her breathing, the occasional brush of her energy field against his consciousness. When he opened his eyes, he found her watching him, her skin glowing with a shade he had never seen before, a deep, pulsing magenta that made his breath catch. "What does that color mean?" he asked, his voice unexpectedly hoarse. Myra's eyes widened slightly, as if she hadn't realized her own luminescence. The magenta deepened, spreading across her shoulders and throat. "It is complicated," she answered, glancing away. Before Kai could press further, the temple's makeshift alarm system blared to life. They both jumped to their feet. "Atmospheric pressure dropping," Kai announced, checking the readings. "We need to seal the inner chamber." They worked together with practiced efficiency, securing their living space against the toxic outside environment. As the chamber door hissed shut, sealing them inside, they found themselves standing close, too close for the careful distance they had maintained. Myra's skin shimmered with that same mysterious magenta, more intense now. Her gaze met his, full of something unnamed but unmistakable. "Kai," she said softly, reaching up to touch his face with trembling fingers. "I think I understand now, why the universe brought you to me." He felt the gentle current of her touch flow through him, awakening something profound and unexpected. This wasn't just duty anymore. This wasn't just survival. This was the beginning of something neither of them had anticipated, something that defied the vast differences between their worlds and species. Something that made their isolation on this dying planet feel less like abandonment and more like a gift. The first kiss happened during the aurora storm. The atmospheric degradation had produced an unexpected side effect, curtains of luminous particles that danced across the sky in hypnotic waves of emerald and violet. Kai had rigged a viewport in their sealed chamber, allowing them to witness the spectacle from safety. "On my world, we called this the breath of ancestors," Mira whispered, her face bathed in the ethereal light. Her skin pulsed in harmony with the colors outside, creating a mirror display that transformed her entire body into a canvas of swirling iridescence. They believed the departed returned as light to bless new beginnings. Kai couldn't tear his eyes away from her. In that moment, the alienness of her features, the slight elongation of her skull, the luminescent patterns beneath her translucent skin, the two large eyes that shifted between colors, seemed not strange but exquisitely beautiful. "It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen," he said, though he wasn't looking at the sky anymore. Mira turned to him, her eyes cycling to that now familiar magenta that he had come to recognize appeared only when they were close. For weeks, a tension had been building between them, a gravity neither acknowledged but both felt. They had grown comfortable with casual touches, a hand on a shoulder, fingers brushing while sharing tools, but both had retreated from anything more. The Union has laws, Kai had reminded himself countless times. Regulations about fraternization with non-human species. But those laws seemed increasingly distant and meaningless on this forgotten world where they were likely the only sentient beings left alive. "Your heart rate increases when you look at me like that," Mira observed, her voice lilting with a teasing quality she had developed recently. Her empathic abilities had grown stronger as she recovered, allowing her to sense his physiological responses. "Does it?" Kai asked, feeling heat rise to his face. She stepped closer, the glow of her skin intensifying. "Yes. And your pupils dilate." Her six-fingered hand rose to his chest, resting over his heart. "Like now." The sensation of her cool touch through his thin shirt sent electricity down his spine. "Mira," he breathed, half warning, half plea. "I have studied your species," she continued, her voice lower now. "Through the data files you shared. I understand human attraction. Kai swallowed hard. There are reasons we shouldn't. Because I am not human? Her eyes darkened slightly. Because your people would disapprove? Because I don't want to take advantage of our situation, he corrected gently. You're vulnerable. The last of your kind. I'm the only other person on this planet. Myra's laugh was like chimes in a breeze. You think I choose you because there is no alternative? Her hand moved from his chest to his face, fingers tracing the contour of his jaw with excruciating gentleness. Kai Thornton, even among millions of my own kind, would find you extraordinary. The remaining distance between them vanished. Later, Kai couldn't recall who had moved first, only that Myra's lips were surprisingly warm against his, that the contact sent waves of tingling sensation cascading through his body, that the subtle current of her energy field seemed to merge with his own. When they parted, breathless, her entire body was glowing with such intensity that the chamber was bathed in rosy light. That was. Kai struggled to find words. The beginning, Mira finished for him. The days that followed were a discovery of each other. Physical intimacy between their species required patience and communication, their anatomies similar in broad strokes but different in exquisite details. Myra's skin was sensitive to touch in ways a human's was not, capable of absorbing and returning sensation through the bioelectric field that all Astari possessed. Kai learned to modulate his movements, finding that soft, deliberate touches could elicit more response than passionate ones. In turn, Mira studied him with the same care one might give to mapping uncharted stars. Your body responds to pressure here, she observed one night, her fingers finding sensitive points along his spine that made him gasp. But here, her touch drifted to his inner wrist, you prefer lightness. Their lovemaking evolved into something neither had experienced before, a blending of human passion with a starry empathic connection. In their most intimate moments, Myra's bioelectric field would envelop them both, creating sensations that transcended physical touch. Kai felt not only his own pleasure but echoes of hers, their experiences reflecting and amplifying each other in ways that left them both trembling and transformed. Is it always like this for your people? Kai asked once, as they lay entwined on their shared pallet, her skin still shimmering with afterglow. No, Mira answered thoughtfully. The physical joining, yes, but this. She gestured to the space between them where energy still visibly connected their bodies like threads of light. This is unique to us. It requires a bond beyond the physical. What kind of bond? She traced symbols on his chest, her expression thoughtful. My people have a word that has no direct translation in your language. The closest might be soul resonance. It is rare, even among Astari pairs. A perfect harmony of energy patterns. Kai covered her hand with his own. So we're compatible at some fundamental level? More than compatible, she corrected. Complementary. Your energy patterns complete mine. Her eyes shifted to a deep, steady blue, the color of absolute certainty. The universe has a strange wisdom, bringing you to me across the stars. Though they had created their own sanctuary of happiness, reality occasionally intruded. The planet's degradation continued, and Kai's calculations showed their resources dwindling. The emergency beacon remained unanswered. Sometimes, in the quiet moments before sleep, he would catch Mira looking at him with a shadow in her eyes. What is it? He asked on one such night, drawing her closer. I wonder, she admitted, if you regret staying. Sacrificing your future among your own kind. Kai considered the path that had led him here, the promising career in the Union, the family who might now believe him dead, the comfortable life he had abandoned. Then he looked at Mira, at the miraculous being who had taught him more about connection and joy than he had experienced in all his previous years combined. No regrets, he said firmly, sealing the promise with a kiss that made her skin bloom with light. Whatever happens, I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. That night, as Mira slept nestled against him, Kai thought he heard something, a distant rumble that didn't match the usual sounds of the dying planet. He dismissed it as imagination until the emergency console blinked to life with a message that made his blood run cold. Incoming vessel detected. Union identification confirmed. Arrival estimated, 0600 hours. The universe, it seemed, wasn't finished with them yet. Part 4, Discovered. The Union vessel Hyperion descended through Epsilon 9's turbulent atmosphere like a predator, sleek and purposeful. Kai watched its approach from the hidden observation point he'd established half a kilometer from their sanctuary. His military-grade binoculars revealed the ship was a Raptor-class research vessel, smaller than the Artemis but still carrying a complement of at least 30 personnel. Not a rescue mission, he muttered to himself, noting the scientific markings on the hull. The knot in his stomach tightened. After nearly 4 months of silence, why would the Union suddenly send researchers to a planet they had classified as terminal? When he returned to their chamber, Mira was preparing a pack with essential supplies. Her movements were precise but her skin betrayed her anxiety, flickering between pale blue and ashen gray. There are 16 crew members, Kai reported, setting down his gear. Mostly scientists, minimal security. They've established a base camp near the Western Temple ruins. Mira nodded, her expression grave. Will they find us? Eventually. The Hyperion scanners are more advanced than my old equipment. They'll detect our power signature within days, if not hours. He took her hands, stilling their nervous movement. We need to decide what to do. Their options were limited. They could flee deeper into the ruined city, but survival would be challenging without their established shelter. They could try to steal a shuttle from the Hyperion, but the security systems would make that nearly impossible. Or they could approach the Union team directly. These are your people, Mira said finally, her eyes shifting to a resolute amber. Perhaps they've come to bring you home. Kai shook his head. If that were true, they would have responded to my emergency beacon months ago. No, they're here for something else. A thought struck him then, chilling in its probability. Or someone. Myra's skin paled further. They know I survived. It's possible. The Artemis's logs would have recorded my discovery of you. Kai paced the small chamber, thinking rapidly. But why wait so long? Unless what? Unless they needed time to prepare. The Union has always been interested in Astari regenerative abilities. Your people refused to share certain biological secrets, as I recall. Myra's expression hardened. Because they would be misused. Our connection to life energy is not meant to be weaponized. The implications settled between them like a physical weight. If the Union had come for Mira specifically, they wouldn't be interested in her as a survivor but as a specimen, the last repository of Astari biological secrets. We need more information before we decide anything, Kai said firmly. I'll infiltrate their camp tonight, access their systems. Find out exactly why they're here. Mira caught his arm. It's too dangerous. I still have my Union credentials. If I'm caught, I can claim I've been waiting for rescue. And me? The question hung in the air, heavy with all its implications. Kai pulled her close, feeling the subtle current of her energy field harmonize with his own, a sensation he had grown addicted to. No one will know about you unless I choose to tell them. That night, Kai approached the Union camp using the stealth techniques from his military training. The perimeter security was minimal. They clearly weren't expecting resistance on an allegedly dead world. He slipped past the sensor grid during a routine calibration cycle and located an unmanned terminal in one of the auxiliary research tents. His credentials, surprisingly, still worked. The system recognized Lieutenant Kai Thornton, though a flag indicated his status as AWOL, presumed deceased. He navigated quickly through the mission parameters, heart pounding as he confirmed his suspicions. Mission objective, locate and secure the Astari specimen for Project Lazarus. Secondary objective, recover Lieutenant Thornton or confirm casualty. Attached files revealed the truth in cold, scientific language. The Union hadn't abandoned the Astari out of indifference, they had deliberately delayed rescue efforts to reduce the survivor population to a manageable number. Project Lazarus aimed to reverse-engineer the Astari regenerative abilities, with applications ranging from medical to military. The ethical restrictions that had protected the Astari during their height were now moot. The species was classified as functionally extinct, removing all protective protocols. A single survivor would be the perfect test subject. Kai downloaded what data he could onto a portable drive and was preparing to leave when the tent flap opened. He turned to find himself facing a familiar figure, Commander Voss, the same officer who had ordered the Artemis to abandon him 4 months ago. "Thornton," Voss said, unsurprised. "I wondered how long it would take you to find us." Kai straightened, slipping into the role of dutiful officer by reflex. "Sir. I was about to report in." Voss's weathered face revealed nothing. "After accessing classified files without authorization?" "I doubt that." His gaze shifted to the terminal, then back to Kai. "Where is it?" "Sir." "Don't play dumb, Lieutenant." "The Astari. Female, wounded when you found her. Is she still alive?" Kai maintained his composure with military discipline. "No, sir. She died within days of your departure. I buried her remains in accordance with what I could determine of their customs." The commander studied him for a long moment. "That's unfortunate. The xenobiology team will be disappointed." He gestured to the terminal. "But according to your access log, you've just downloaded the complete file on Project Lazarus. Why would a loyal officer need that information if the specimen is dead?" Before Kai could respond, a commotion erupted outside. Shouts and the distinctive whine of energy weapons cut through the night air. "Sir! We've detected a non-human biosignature approaching the eastern perimeter," a voice called. Kai's heart plummeted. Mira. She must have followed him, worried for his safety. Voss's expression hardened. Well. It seems reports of extinction were exaggerated." He unholstered his sidearm. "Let's go meet our guest, shall we, Lieutenant?" Outside, chaos reigned. Floodlights swept the perimeter where security personnel had formed a semicircle around a slender figure whose skin pulsed with defensive bioluminescence, Mira, cornered and frightened but defiant. "Hold your fire!" Kai shouted, breaking away from Voss and rushing toward the standoff. One of the security officers, startled by his sudden appearance, discharged his weapon. The energy pulse missed Mira but struck the ground beside her, sending her stumbling back with a cry of pain. Kai reached her, placing himself between her and the weapons. "Don't touch her," he commanded, with such authority that the security team hesitated. "Lieutenant Thornton," called Dr. Eleanor Reed, the lead xenobiologist, stepping forward. "Please step aside. This specimen is critical to Union research." "She's not a specimen," Kai retorted. "She's a sentient being with rights under Galactic Accord Section 7. The Astari species has been classified extinct," Reed countered smoothly. "Section 7 protections apply only to viable species." Mira rose to her full height behind Kai, her voice clear and resonant. "I am Mira, last daughter of the Astari Council. I am not extinct while I still draw breath." The assembled crew stared, many of them having never seen a living Astari before. Their magnificence in life was far removed from the clinical descriptions in xenobiology texts. "Remarkable," murmured Reed, her scientific interest overriding her professionalism. "And it speaks our language fluently." "Thornton, you've been teaching it?" "Her," Kai corrected sharply. "And yes, we've been learning from each other." A ripple of uncomfortable murmurs spread through the crew. Voss pushed his way forward, eyes narrowing as he observed the protective stance Kai maintained in front of Mira, and the way her hand rested on his shoulder, familiar, intimate. "Lieutenant," Voss said, disgust evident in his tone, "step away from the alien immediately." Kai didn't move. "No, sir. That's an order, soldier." "I respectfully decline to follow that order, sir." Voss's face darkened with fury. "Have you forgotten your oath to the Union? Your duty to humanity?" "My duty is to preserve life and uphold justice," Kai replied evenly. "The Union taught me that much, at least." The relationship between Lieutenant Thornton and the specimen appears to have evolved beyond professional boundaries, Reed observed clinically, though her expression reflected the same distaste as Voss's. Xenophilic tendencies sometimes develop in isolation scenarios. It's a documented phenomenon. "It's disgusting is what it is," Voss spat. "Security team, detain Lieutenant Thornton for medical evaluation and secure the alien specimen." The security officers advanced, weapons raised. Kai tensed, prepared to fight despite the futility. But before anyone could move further, Mira stepped forward, her skin blazing with such intensity that several officers shielded their eyes. "Stop." Her voice carried a harmonic resonance that seemed to vibrate in the air itself. "You speak of rights and duties while planning to dissect the last of my kind? Your hypocrisy dishonors your species." The sheer authority in her tone halted the advance momentarily. In that brief window, Kai felt a subtle shift in the air, a familiar sensation he'd experienced during their most intimate connections. Mira was gathering her energy. "Kai," she whispered, just loud enough for him to hear. "Trust me." Before he could respond, she raised her arms and a pulse of bioelectric energy exploded outward, temporarily disabling the nearest equipment and disorienting the security team. In the confusion, she grabbed Kai's hand and they ran, disappearing into the ruins of her ancestral city while alarms blared behind them. They fled deep into the labyrinthine underground passages that Mira had mapped during her solitary years as a survivor. Only when they reached a sealed chamber far beneath the temple complex did they stop, breathless and shaking. "They'll hunt us now," Kai said grimly, checking the small pack of supplies he'd managed to grab during their escape. "And they know we're together." Myra's skin had dimmed to conserve energy, but her eyes still swirled with determination. "They know," she agreed. "But they do not understand." Kai pulled her close, feeling the familiar synchronization of their energy fields, the connection that had changed everything. "What they saw as contamination, I see as transcendence," he whispered against her temple. "And what they saw as betrayal," Mira replied, "the stars will recognize as destiny." Above them, the sounds of pursuit echoed through the ancient ruins. Their forbidden love had been exposed to the harsh judgment of Kai's people, setting in motion a conflict that would force them to make their final choice, submission or defiance. Part 5, Defiance of Stars. The subterranean chamber beneath the ancient Astari temple had become their last refuge. For 3 days, Kai and Mira had evaded Union search parties through their knowledge of the hidden passages that honeycombed the ruins. Each time the patrols drew near, Mira would dim her bioluminescence to near darkness, and they would press themselves into crevices where the Union scanners couldn't penetrate, the unique mineral composition of the temple walls providing natural interference. "They're establishing a perimeter," Kai observed, studying the tactical display on his salvaged data pad. He had managed to hack into the Hyperion's communications network, giving them limited intelligence on Union movements. "They're settling in for a siege." Mira knelt beside a small pool of water that collected from an underground spring, the only reliable source of hydration in their hiding place. Her reflection rippled as she dipped her hands in, hands that now showed signs of the planet's continuing degradation. Fine cracks had begun to appear on her iridescent skin, spreading like delicate lightning across her forearms. "The planet is dying faster now," she said quietly. "The Union's excavation has accelerated the decay." Kai set down the datapad and moved to her side, taking her hands in his. The cracks were worse than yesterday. How much time do we have? The atmospheric composition is becoming toxic even to my biology. Days, perhaps. A week at most. Her eyes shifted to a somber gray. And your oxygen recyclers are failing. The harsh reality of their situation settled between them. They were trapped between the slow death of a dying planet and the clinical dissection that awaited Mira if captured. Kai had no illusions about his own fate either, court-martial at best, indefinite psychiatric detention at worst. The Union didn't tolerate those who formed inappropriate attachments to non-human species. There has to be another way, Kai insisted, refusing to accept defeat. The Hyperion has shuttles. If we could steal one. Their security would detect us before we reached the landing pad, Mira reminded him gently. And even if we escaped, where would we go? The Union controls this sector. Kai ran a hand through his dust-streaked hair. There are independent colonies in the outer rim. Places where species coexist without Union oversight. If we could just... He was interrupted by an alert from the datapad. Someone was broadcasting on an emergency frequency, not a standard Union channel. Cautiously, Kai accepted the transmission. Lieutenant Thornton, came a familiar voice, distorted by encryption. This is Medical Officer Juno Patel. I'm alone on this channel. Kai exchanged a glance with Mira before responding. Dr. Patel. Why should I trust this communication? Because I've disabled the trace function, she replied promptly. And because not everyone on this mission agrees with what command is planning for the Astari survivor. Kai's suspicion didn't waver. Explain. Some of us joined this expedition believing it was about documenting a tragedy and honoring the Astari legacy. Patel's voice lowered. When we learned the truth about Project Lazarus, about the planned vivisection and genetic harvesting, we knew we couldn't be complicit. We? Kai questioned. There are 7 of us. Scientists, mostly, and 1 pilot. We want to help you both escape. It could be a trap, a ploy to lure them out of hiding. But the desperation in Patel's voice sounded genuine, and their options were rapidly diminishing. What are you proposing? Kai asked carefully. We can create a diversion tonight. Engineering will trigger a containment breach in the main laboratory, harmless but dramatic. During the evacuation protocols, our pilot can have a shuttle prepped on the auxiliary pad. It would give you a 30-second window to board before security overrides kick in. It was risky, borderline suicidal. But when Kai looked at Mira, at the spreading cracks in her once flawless skin, at the determination in her color-shifting eyes, he knew they had to take the chance. We'll be there, he confirmed. 2,200 hours. South approach. One more thing, Patel added quickly. Commander Voss suspects dissent in the ranks. He's ordered neuro-loyalty scans for tomorrow. This is our only chance too. The transmission ended, leaving them with a desperate plan and dwindling hours to prepare. Can we trust them? Mira asked, her voice steady despite the gravity of their situation. Kai pulled her close, feeling the now familiar synchronization of their energy patterns, the harmony that had become his touchstone in a universe that seemed determined to tear them apart. We have to, he whispered against her temple. It's our only hope. Nightfall brought chaos to the Union camp. True to Patel's word, alarms blared across the compound at precisely 2,200 hours. Emergency lighting bathed the ruins in pulsing red as personnel evacuated from the main research dome, where simulated containment warnings suggested a biohazard release. Kai and Mira approached from the south, using the confusion as cover. They moved quickly but cautiously, Mira's weakened state evident in the dimming of her natural luminescence. The spreading cracks in her skin had reached her shoulders now, painful reminders of her body's struggle to survive in the toxic atmosphere. The auxiliary landing pad appeared deserted except for a single shuttle, its engines humming in pre-flight mode. Standing beside the open hatch was a young woman in Union medical insignia, Dr. Patel, presumably. Quickly, she urged as they approached, her eyes widening at Myra's deteriorating condition. The override will engage any second. They were halfway across the exposed landing area when floodlights suddenly blazed to life, bathing them in harsh white illumination. Commander Voss's voice boomed through the compound's announcement system. Lieutenant Thornton and Astari specimen, you are surrounded. This pitiful mutiny has been contained. Armed security personnel emerged from concealed positions, weapons trained on them. Dr. Patel's expression collapsed into despair. I'm sorry, she whispered. They intercepted our communications. They knew the whole plan. Voss himself appeared, flanked by guards. Dr. Patel, you're under arrest for conspiracy and treason. He turned his cold gaze to Kai and Mira. As for you two, this absurd escapade ends now. Kai stepped protectively in front of Mira, though he knew resistance was futile. They had no weapons, no leverage, and nowhere to run. The Astari comes with us for study, Voss continued dispassionately. You, Lieutenant, will be remanded to psychiatric evaluation. Xenophilic attachment is classified as a mental disorder under Union Regulation 218b. You can't separate us, Kai stated, his voice steady despite his racing heart. The Galactic Accord guarantees. The Accord doesn't recognize cross-species pair bonding as a protected status, Voss cut him off. Particularly not with a functionally extinct species. Behind Kai, Mira suddenly straightened, her skin beginning to pulse with renewed energy, not the soft glow he had grown accustomed to, but a brilliant, almost blinding radiance that emanated from the cracks in her flesh. Mira, he questioned, concern overriding his focus on Voss. Her eyes had shifted to a color he had never seen before, a deep, cosmic violet that seemed to contain galaxies. The temple energy core, she whispered for his ears alone. It still lives deep beneath us. I can feel it. Before Kai could question further, Mira raised her arms and a shockwave of bioelectric energy pulsed outward, temporarily disabling the nearest weapons and communications devices. In the momentary confusion, she dropped to her knees and pressed her palms against the ancient stone of the landing pad. What is she doing? Voss demanded, backing away as the ground beneath them began to tremble. Kai watched in awe as luminescent patterns spread from Myra's hands, tracing ancient Astari symbols across the landing pad. The cracks in her skin widened, but instead of showing injury, they now revealed intense light from within. The last gift of the Astari, she announced, her voice carrying that haunting harmonic quality that seemed to vibrate in the air itself. Life where there was death. The trembling intensified, and sections of the landing pad began to sink and shift. Union personnel scrambled to stable ground as the very foundation of their camp transformed. From the depths of the planet, energy surged upward, the temple's ancient power source responding to the call of the last Astari. Amid the chaos, Dar. Patel grabbed Kai's arm. The shuttle. It's our only chance. Kai reached for Mira, who was still kneeling in communion with her ancestral technology. Mira, we have to go. She rose unsteadily, the light within her pulsing in rhythm with the energy now visibly flowing through the ruins. Yes, she agreed, her voice distant. But not on their vessel. As if summoned by her words, the ground shifted again, revealing a hidden bay beneath the ancient temple. Within it rested a sleek craft of unmistakable Astari design, one of their legendary starships, preserved in stasis for centuries. Impossible, breathed Dr. Reed, who had arrived with the security team. All Astari vessels were thought destroyed in the cataclysm. Not all, Mira corrected, a smile playing on her cracked, luminous face. My ancestors prepared for our darkest hour. The ship hummed to life, responding to Myra's proximity. Panels slid open, revealing an entrance ramp. Commander Voss, recovering from his shock, raised his weapon. "Stop them." But the security team hesitated, many of them openly awed by the spectacle before them. The dying planet itself seemed to be awakening, as dormant Astari technology responded to Myra's call. Dr. Patel made her decision. "Go," she urged Kai and Mira. "We'll cover your escape." She turned to her fellow dissenters, who had gathered during the confusion. "Anyone who believes in the true mission of the Union, protecting all sentient life, stand with me now." To Kai's surprise, nearly half the expedition personnel moved to Patel's side, forming a human barrier between them and Voss's loyalists. "This is treason," Voss shouted. "All of you will face charges." "Perhaps," Patel responded calmly. "Or perhaps we'll be the ones to tell the truth about what happened here. About how the Union abandoned its principles in pursuit of biological weapons." The standoff gave Kai and Mira the precious seconds they needed to reach the Astari vessel. As they stepped inside, the ship recognized Myra's genetic signature, systems activating in response to her presence. "Can you fly this?" Kai asked, marveling at the organic-looking controls. Mira placed her hands on what appeared to be navigation sensors. "The knowledge is in my blood," she confirmed. "My ancestors ensured that." Outside, the confrontation between the divided Union crew was escalating. Voss had ordered his loyalists to arrest the dissenters, but the numbers were nearly even, and in the confusion of the awakening ruins, his authority was slipping. The Astari ship's engines hummed to life, a sound like singing crystals filling the air. The vessel rose gracefully from its ancient berth, hovering momentarily above the astonished Union personnel. Kai opened a communication channel to the planet's surface. "This is Lieutenant Kai Thornton. I formally resign my commission with the Union, effective immediately." He paused, looking at Mira beside him, her cracked skin now a map of luminous veins as her body channeled the ship's energy. "And I claim asylum with the Astari nation, represented by Council Daughter Mira." The formal declaration, recognizing Mira not as a specimen but as a sovereign representative of her people, would force legal complications for Voss if he pursued them. Dr. Patel's voice came through the channel. "Good luck, Lieutenant. May you find the sanctuary we all should have offered from the beginning." As the ship ascended through Epsilon 9's turbulent atmosphere, Kai watched the Union camp dwindle below. The ancient temple ruins were now pulsing with renewed energy, as if Myra's communion had triggered some long-dormant regeneration protocol. "The planet," he observed in wonder. "It's healing itself." Mira nodded, her hands steady on the controls despite her weakened condition. "The Astari were caretakers of worlds. Even in our absence, our technology continues our work." She glanced at him, eyes swirling with emotion. "Just as I will continue my people's legacy." "Where will we go?" Kai asked as the ship broke free of the planet's gravity well, the stars of open space beckoning before them. Myra's skin began to stabilize, the cracks sealing as the ship's environmental systems restored proper conditions for her biology. "There are places beyond Union space where species coexist in harmony. Sanctuaries established by the old alliances." A smile transformed her face, no longer the last survivor of a doomed species, but the first ambassador of a reborn one. "And there are other Astari colonies, far beyond this sector, that even the Union doesn't know exist." Kai's heart leapt at the implication. "You're not the last." "I thought I was," she admitted. "But the ship's database contains coordinates to deep space sanctuaries. Seed vaults. Preservation colonies." Her eyes shimmered with hope. "My people prepared for the worst while praying for rebirth." As the ship accelerated to light speed, leaving the Union vessel and the transforming planet behind, Kai pulled Mira into his arms. Their energy fields harmonized instantly, the connection between them stronger than ever. "When the universe abandoned you," he whispered, "I refused to walk away. And when your people demanded your return, she replied, her voice melodic with emotion, you chose to stay with me. The stars stretched into streaks of light around their vessel, carrying them toward an uncertain future, but one they would face together. Their defiance of cosmic odds, of societal constraints, of the very laws that governed their separate species, had forged something unprecedented, a bridge between worlds that neither extinction nor persecution could sever. In the vast emptiness of space, where countless civilizations had risen and fallen, where species evolved and perished in the blink of cosmic time, their forbidden union stood as testament to the most powerful force in any galaxy, the stubborn refusal to let go of love, even when the universe itself seemed determined to tear it apart. The stars once witnessed the fall of my people, Mira said softly, gazing out at the cosmic tapestry surrounding them. Now they will witness our rebirth. Kai laced his fingers through hers, feeling the current of her energy meld with his own, two disparate beings whose connection transcended biology and physics. And they'll witness something new, he added. A future neither of our kinds could have imagined alone. As their ship vanished into the depths of uncharted space, the legend of the human who defied his own kind for love of the last Astari began to spread, first among the Union dissenters who returned to tell their tale, then throughout the independent colonies of the Outer Rim, and eventually to the hidden Astari sanctuaries waiting to welcome their lost daughter home. It was a story of defiance against abandonment, of connection forged in isolation, of love that refused to recognize the boundaries of species or the dictates of governments. And as with all legends born of truth, it carried a power that would echo across generations, inspiring others to look beyond differences and recognize the universal language that binds all sentient beings, the courage to choose compassion when the easier path would be to simply walk away.